We are live. There we go. What's up, man? Appreciate you reaching out and coming on and sharing the live with me. Hopefully we can give people what they want. You said you had a lot of people reach out and wanted a back and forth between you and me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you were definitely the person that everyone was requesting. It was you and Rector, and I know Rector's fighting for his channel right now, so prayers to him. I know he's going to get it back, but awesome to have you here, man. And this is definitely a collab that a lot of people have been waiting for, so I'm super excited to do this.
Yeah, pump for it, man. You've had a lot of really good content lately. Just want to applaud you on what you've been putting out around the XRPL and kind of explaining things about the amendments. I've always enjoyed, like, even the Saturday morning lives on Twitter, you would come in and like your expertise on macroeconomics and just the overall situation was always nice to have. Anyway, just cool to have somebody else in the space that has the same jam.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I think a lot of people forgot back in the day we'd always do those Saturday live streams. Those were a lot of fun. Yeah. I think we both probably ended up in the same space where you have so much going on. It's hard to maintain something like that. But those were absolutely awesome, and those were really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have kind of an agenda or the way that you wanted it to go, or were we just kind of going with the ebb and flow, chit chat back and forth, and then kind of do some Q&A?
I was thinking we could bounce some topics off each other, whatever. While we go, we can do Q&A on the way. I have some people asking questions in here, so if I see anyone asking an interesting question, I'll throw it up or I'll pose it to you. And if not, we can just kind of go wherever the conversation takes us. I don't see us having a shortage of anything to talk about here.
Well, so I'll give you the choices. Do you want to go macroeconomics and that side of things? You and JB were on Spaces the other morning, and I was like jamming out to listen to both you guys.
Oh, we can start off there.
Okay.
I think that's always a good place to start any conversation.
Yeah.
I'll give my kind of just quick little spiel first. Overall, right now, I think we're probably in one of the more interesting times we've been in a while. The two main things that I've really been watching are, one, inflation, and then two, how the Federal Reserve is responding to that inflation and then the downstream effects to the economy. I think we're in a very interesting point right now where the Federal Reserve has obviously cranked up rates to try to slow down the heat on inflation. We're kind of in a weird balancing act where we don't know if they turned up that rate meter too high and it's going to have big repercussions on our economy, or whether or not essentially they're going to be able to pull back in time to not kind of get a really bad recession. I don't know where I stand on whether or not they are able to pull back in time or we do get that recession. I'm really not in the market of predicting that. What I'm predicting is if they do cut in time and we go to lower interest rates, that's going to be very good for a lot of the risk assets I think a lot of people here invest into. And then if they don't do it in time and they do cause something bad to happen, well, then they're forced to cut rates. So we're back in that same kind of environment where rates are low, and it's probably good for the digital assets you and I own. So that's my kind of high level overview of kind of what I'm watching. I'd love to hear what you're seeing.
The similar boat, right? So I don't think they raised rates fast enough, which is probably contradictory to what a lot of people would think. There's a lot of strain on people having to refinance debt. It caught a lot of regional banks off guard, and we saw some bank failures last year where people had bet that they wouldn't hike that quickly and had, bought into longer term treasuries and had to refinance those. And so we had SVB and Silvergate and a lot of those other ones that just happened to hold USDC backing end up failing. And then old Uncle Warren, diversified a little bit into the banks and he just happens to own some regional banks along with Bank of America. So anyway, I was watching Blockchain Backer. I don't know if you follow any of his TA. I'm not a TA guy. I'm more of macroeconomics. I take people's input. You're one of those people that I like to watch and kind of see what they think, and then that plays into my thesis on stuff. Um, he had put out an interesting chart that was the top in 2007, right before we had the recession in 08 and 9. And we had a double top then of, I think it was the Dow that he had up. And basically the Fed, not in a meeting, but just came out one week and was like, hey, we needed to lower rates. We had the ECB, the ECB came out last week and then said that they were going to come down 100 basis points this year. So if we stay the same and they do that, our currency appreciates substantially against theirs. They tend to lead us. So my anticipation is we're probably going to see the Fed come out at some point and lower rates. Maybe it's 25 basis points, maybe it's 50 basis points. But they did that in 07. And we still had the downturn, right? Basically, they did it too late. But we're in a really precarious spot, like you mentioned before. So the CPIs come in above 2% again. And we know it's the CPI. Like the real inflation's far beyond that. But they had like 3.1, or I don't remember what the exact reading was.
Right around that. People really get into the decimals on that stuff.
So, but it was higher than what they wanted, right? So now they're in a position where, and so for people, I know probably your audience is a little bit more educated, and mine is too, but I just want to iterate this for people that may not know how this works. The Fed has a couple different levers that they can pull. They can print money or reduce the monetary supply. So that's M2. That's one side of the inflation equation. And then the other one is interest rates, and that controls how fast money moves through the economy, like proxy. So the easier it is to get debt and credit, the lower the interest rates are, the more people borrow. And then the higher they are, people tend to pull back on that. So money moves less. So they can kind of throttle velocity that way. And those are the two factors that together give you what the inflation is. And they tend to be, so like if you reduce the monetary supply, you get deflation, and you get an appreciation of the currency. And if you were to increase interest rates, you have a similar effect. So it's kind of a toggle back and forth. In the last 3 years, we've seen them print infinitely, the money printer go burr. And they had low interest rates, and then they hiked them way up, and now they've stopped monetary easing and QE. They had, the lending window was open after the regional banks failed, and that got cut off on the 31st of March. So now we're in this period of really higher interest rates, and it's about how long you can sustain that. I'm with you. I think they're going to pivot. But
I think the big issues that they kind of have pushing against them right now are one, the obvious issue of us spending more money on our interest payments than our defense. It's the first time that's happened in a while. You have the Fed losing records amount of money every quarter. That's a big issue. And then obviously there's a lot of stress in the regional banking sector. Look, what I've noticed that I think is very unique here is there's a lot of stress on these financial institutions, and there's a lot of other institutions outside the financials that have really not been affected. I was listening to Tesla's earnings call the other day. A company like NVIDIA, look, they're not going to stop ordering. Tesla's not going to stop ordering H100s from NVIDIA. NVIDIA had an order to China that was stopped by the United States because essentially the United States didn't want NVIDIA selling that many chips to China. And overnight, they were able to reroute those chips to another company. So their demand is just so high. I don't know if the interest rate is going to stop that. Is AI a bubble? Are there issues that are different around that? That's a whole nother debate. But what I really notice is I think we're in a very unique time where I question if every company is as interest rate sensitive as it used to. And I don't know if that thesis is going to play out. I think there's going to be some companies that are in a very precarious spot, but I do question if some of these AI companies and some of these tech companies, cryptocurrency companies, might have kind of tailwinds behind them that can push them through what's over the next couple of months.
They have really strong balance sheets, right? Like, and they're not in a ton of debt. There are companies that are zombie companies that continually roll and refinance. And, you need a recession occasionally to wipe people out, right? Like if you're not producing value in the economy, if you're not creating GDP and jobs, you probably need to go, right? And so people don't like that. The other thing that I don't remember if it was Blockchain Back or somebody else that was saying, but if we did have a recession or deflationary event, there are more job listings out there than there people are qualified for the jobs at this point. The employment rate is great, right? And that's because there's more jobs than we can fill. And there's not new people coming into the marketplace. If anything, and there are, okay, so let me qualify that. There are definitely new people coming into jobs, but there's more people retiring than there are new people coming in, right? So we actually have a reduction of the workforce, and that's going to continue. Boomers are going to retire over the next decade. There's going to be a lot of them that leave the workforce. We don't have the same amount of people coming in. And so we're going to have to replace the value and offset that with a lot of the technologies you're discussing, right? We got to have AI. We have to augment it with blockchain smart contracts. We got to have more efficiencies come in to be able to offset the loss of value that's been created by the generation that's retiring. And it's going to be a really interesting dynamic. I don't know. I think we're in a precarious spot. If you never know black swan events, right? Like people thought that was looming for a long time. What do you think about oil? What if we do see oil what if they close the Strait of Hormuz? I don't know if that's how you say it. Probably said it wrong. In the Middle East, and we see a spike in oil. What do you think that does?
Yeah, I'll answer that in 1 second. What I want to say real quick is if anyone here is watching my stream or Jake's stream from YouTube, upper right-hand corner will allow you to drop a like on the stream on mobile. Hold your finger down on the screen also. That will allow you to drop a like. And if you're on desktop, it should be on the bottom. If you're on X, all you have to do is drop us a retweet, and that would be super, super helpful in getting a lot of people to see the stream. In terms of oil, to be completely honest, with you, I don't have that many in-depth thoughts on oil. It's not something I track regularly. For those of you who don't know, who might be watching me for the first time, by trade, I'm a surgical robotics engineer. So a lot of what I do is very, very focused on the tech side of things. Oil is something that I really just watch what other people are saying about it and kind of take what they're saying and say, you know what, I'm not an expert here. I'm just going to watch what these other people are saying and take it in. I think that's really important for any investor, not to try to be an expert on everything out there, but build up a repertoire of people you respect and follow and people who really understand an industry and say, you know what, this person does 30 to 40 hours a week on this subject. I might just sit back and listen to what they have to say about this. So to be completely honest with you, I don't have too many thoughts about it, but I would love to hear if you see anything interesting there.
Yeah. When I just want to really point out, I love what you just said there, because that's exactly what I do. Like, you are somebody that I watch in the tech space. I have other people that are bonds, other people that are commodities, other people that are stocks, and I don't have extra time to spend in depth and understand that. So I watch these other people, and then again try to stitch my thesis together. So there's going to be implications on the yen. I don't know if you're abreast of that situation.
I'm watching that, and I know it's getting a little chaotic over there.
Yeah. So I watched a video that Jim Rickards did, and it was an interview he did in 2013 or 14. And the reason you can date it is the Fed chair and the president was Obama in the video. Okay. The Fed chair was different. I can't think of the gentleman's name previous to Jerome, but anyway, he talks about a conflict, and he says there's two scenarios playing out at the same time. You have a currency war between the U.S. and China, and then you also have a conflict in the Middle East where Iran attacks Israel. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting that you name this, right? And that was one of the implications he mentioned in the video, was they closed the strait and basically constrict 1/3 of the world's oil supply overnight. So you see a spike in oil prices, which has implications on broader markets and currencies as a whole. Economies are then stressed even further than what they would be, right? So the yen in particular is already in a spot against the US dollar. We saw, them continually, they're dumping treasuries to try to offset that, but really that's not having an effect anymore either. They lowered interest rates to try to allow theirs to appreciate, or raised interest rates. That didn't help it either. And so I think they're in a position now where they're going to have to pivot to a CBDC. They're the only G7 nation that currently has that in a trial phase.
So do you think that would be a move to try to go back and just start over on the currency?
I think they'll be able to shore it up, right? So we've seen
Okay.
a pivot from the traditional fiat currency that Russia had back to gold. We've seen Zimbabwe peg their currency to gold. I think that you'll get the same thing with Japan.
Okay.
And when they do that, they could dump U.S. treasuries because their currency would be worth enough that, and their bonds and treasuries would earn a yield, right? So that has implications for the U.S. dollar. And then what does that do? Is it Project Sandman, right? Like they're the world's largest foreign debt holder.
Mm-hmm.
Did the rest of the BRICS nations take advantage of that and also dump at the same time? Anyway, I could see a scenario that played out very quickly, where we pivot to this new financial system that you and I both know is coming.
Yep.
And that kind of solves some of the problems here. And like I said, Jim Rickards put this out like a decade ago, and played out these war games with the White House. And then we had the currency war simulation that Gary Gensler was a part of in, like, I don't know if it's 18 or 19. There's the video of him in that deal. Now he's the SEC chair. So anyway,
I got a question that's coming up a decent amount here, and it kind of plays right into this, and that's what you thought of the news earlier that Russia was seizing some of JP Morgan's assets, because I definitely had some thoughts on this, but I want to hear what you think.
I immediately tagged Steve Narioff and asked him if it had anything to do with ETH.
Okay.
And he did not answer, but he immediately liked it. So if that means anything, I have no clue.
Yeah. I thought that was fascinating. My first reaction to seeing that was this is just going to put a premium on decentralized networks that people don't have control of, because look, I think a lot of people don't realize we're not going to stop doing business with Russia or China anytime soon. But if every single time you go to do a business transaction with one of these nations and you have to worry about it being used as essentially an act of war, then you're not going to be too trusting to do too many business transactions. The business is not going to stop if you could just put a level playing field between both nations that has a strict set of rules built into it, i.e. a blockchain technology. Then essentially you could have two parties interacting with one another who don't trust each other, but still able to do business. So I thought that was an excellent kind of thesis builder.
You need a trustless asset also, right? So you need something that they can't claw back, that they can't freeze. What is that, right? There's only one thing that I can think of. I don't know. That has a black hole original account where they can't issue more of it and nobody can control the asset. And so it's come out now that Ripple's using Tether in their ODL for certain corridors. We'll get into that. I'm sure you probably have thoughts on it. I've been aware of that for a while. And the only reason was when I was at CoinAlts last year, they didn't film this conference. It was KPMG and MG Stover and PolySign and a lot of the fund administrators for digital assets were there. They were nice enough to invite me. And Brad gave a keynote with Jack McDonald. And I asked Brad about ODL, and he mentioned that there were certain corridors where both parties wanted US dollars and Tether was just more liquid than XRP. So they used Tether in those corridors to settle. So how much of Tether's volume is made up of ODL?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I actually had never even thought about that. My original thought with just seeing Tether was I didn't personally find out about that until I saw the documentation in the case. My original thinking was that obviously Ripple has So for those of you who don't know, just to catch up,
Yeah.
essentially Ripple, part of their institutional sales in the United States was wrapped up in them selling XRP for ODL for the institutional sales. Pretty much the three main issues there were lockups around the XRP, discounts on the XRP, and then there's one other thing that was similar to lockups. It doesn't really matter.
Option.
Anyway, Ripple said, hey, we can still have our ODL product in the United States. We'll just get rid of the things the court took issue with. And it's a completely different offering. You can still offer XRP just like they did in a lot of their other ways they distributed XRP that didn't run violations of securities laws. So Ripple right now is trying to essentially show the judge, hey, we're fine paying the fine on those sales before in the past. We realized those were non-compliant, but we now structure this product this way. So we want to be able to run ODL in this new fashion. I speculated that Tether was being used in the meantime in the United States because of that issue. But obviously, if Brad said there was liquidity reasons in other jurisdictions, well, obviously, that's obviously something that needs to be paid attention to as well.
Yeah. He just said it was more liquid in certain corridors. And again, if both parties want USD, the only problem with that is you have third-party counter risk of Tether, right? So you're reliant that they do have the reserves that they're saying they do. And we know, from a lot of the things in the space that may or may not be true. They have had, I think it was the 13th largest audit firm, verify and audit them. And they did come back and say, it was 75% US Treasuries, and then they had other cash equivalents, and now they have a certain portion backed by Bitcoin. They bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin in the last year to bolster that position. But under the new regulation, it doesn't meet the qualifications of a stable coin because a portion of it is backed by Bitcoin, right? So they would have to actually sell the Bitcoin for US Treasuries or something else if they were to pass that stablecoin regulation here to be compliant.
Which, just out of curiosity, which stablecoin bill was that?
Yeah, it's on the floor. It was the one that Loomis and
okay, it was the Loomis one. Got it. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, I've always been kind of in a funny position with Tether. That might be one of the more interesting stories in all of crypto when you watch how they've kind of slithered their way through this entire disaster and somehow have come out untouched. I personally still think that they'll probably be weaned out of the spotlight, and they'll always be around, just like the dark web is still around today. There's still a lot of websites out there that you can get illegal things on that you can still get access to. I'm not saying that Tether's only going to be used for that, but the way I see things moving is that most nations are kind of trying to push Tether to the sideline. And I think it has more to do with just the fact that because it doesn't have jurisdiction in the United States, they really can't be controlled like the United States wants to control them. So I think that's kind of a big thing there.
Well, so they're allowing transactions on their network that aren't compliant with KYC, AML, and OFAC. So they're, dealing with Russia. Russia's able to issue transactions on the network along with Iran and other sanctioned parties. And that's obviously a problem, right? It's not compliant with SWIFT. But, they need to transact in the global ecosystem also. So anyway, I think that there's a potential that they could sanction Tether. I don't know what that would freeze all liquidity on exchanges if they did that. And they're the 6th largest holder of U.S. Treasuries at this point. So,
that's shocking.
Well, so the Feds stopped buying, right? So who's been buying all this foreign debt that people have been liquidating? Tether.
Yeah. Wow. It's shocking how big. I mean, like in the grand scheme of things, right? Crypto hasn't been around that long, and it's insane how big even Tether, Coinbase. Obviously, it's hard to really see into Ripple because we don't have a lot of those financials from a public company. But just seeing that Coinbase is doing more revenue than like the Nasdaq is just this stuff got big fast.
Yeah, and rightly so. I mean, if you're providing a lot of value and benefit and you're reducing frictions in whatever you're providing liquidity to, then you're justified, right? Even if you're taking very small nominal fees on transactions, If you're doing that at scale, like Walmart operates on like 17 or 18% margins, but everything in the store is consignment, and they're so huge, right, that even a little bit of margin on so much is a lot of money.
Yeah, well, this is one of the things I really always try to drive home to my audience. Like, a lot of people get really like warped into the idea of market cap and how that's like a limiting factor. But if you look at any single technology that has disrupted a past industry, it almost always demands a market cap exponentially higher than the industry it was disrupting. And I think that same thing is going to play out in crypto, and it's something that people really have a hard time understanding. They see like the biggest company in the United States right now, which is around 2-3 trillion, right? I think cryptocurrency companies are going to surpass that and in a big way, and we're likely going to see a lot of cryptocurrency companies in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. And I know that sounds crazy for me to say it right now, but everyone thought it was crazy that 20 years ago that you could have a tech company with a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. And it's just these innovations that drive higher and higher market caps, higher and higher revenues, higher and higher profitabilities, and that cycle keeps happening. I'm firmly convinced that cryptocurrencies are going to be that next generation investment that's going to make major disruptions to the financial system.
Yeah, I would completely agree. It's difficult to conceptualize the value of a protocol. The companies themselves, I think, will be extremely valuable. Ripple, in particular, I think when they do IPO, I'm going to make a prediction that they're the largest IPO in history when they IPO. Saudi Aramco, I think, was 59 billion at IPO, and I think Ripple will be around 100 billion at IPO once they get past the case and everything else, and all the partnerships that they potentially have in the background come to the forefront.
You know what the only problem with Ripple being the IPO, biggest IPO is?
What's that?
They have a SpaceX problem. They've got to beat SpaceX. They've got to beat SpaceX, or it's going to be close. It's going to be close.
So SpaceX is. We looked at SpaceX stock not too long ago. They're already $173 billion private company.
It's insane. It's insane.
The shares that we were looking at was a $5 million allocation on an SPV at $97 a share was their last tender offer.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. And so anyway, yeah, they're far beyond, like, that will probably be the largest IPO when it
exactly. So I agree with you. I think Ripple could be the biggest. I just think it's funny, right? Ripple will probably be the biggest.
Yeah, then right after
SpaceX. Yeah, and then SpaceX. Exactly. I saw that valuation. I saw that valuation the other day, and my jaw dropped. I was like, that is wild,
nutty. One, it's the data, right? So and people, so they put all these satellites into space, and people, you have internet anywhere, great. The real value in this is the speed at which things can transact. So previous to Elon having all of that in place, you had undersea cables that would send messages from Europe to the US, and they've been trying to like straighten those and make sure that because it bounces the messaging, right? And it's down to 0.0 something milliseconds. Like, it's already super fast. So, but they've been trying to shave off like, tenths of a millisecond for decades now. And Starlink cuts that in half.
Yeah.
The transmission time.
Yeah, so, I'll tell you specifically what I do for work in surgical robotics. You wonder why a fraction of a second is so important, but if you're doing surgery on someone around the world, then that fraction of a second makes a huge difference. And the goal is to be able to have surgeons in the United States be performing surgeries on people anywhere in the entire world. So if a high power politician or anyone important in any other country needs medical attention, that 5-star surgeon can jump on a machine and provide that surgery just like that. So those seconds do make a huge difference in the long run.
I need to make an introduction. I have a guy that has a video camera technology that allows for real-time surgery. Like, the transmission's instant. There's zero delay between when it's, when they're moving the tool and when the surgeon's actually doing it. And it allows them to broadcast it at scale, right? So normally in that environment, you might be able to have like 2 other people because, just you've got germs and other things, and they don't really have a good view of what's going on. This camera's right above everything, right? And then they can host it and have like 50 or 60 people watch and learn a new procedure that's state of the art and could save lives, right? So super cool.
That's really cool. Hey, I got a topic for you.
Okay.
This is one that I'm getting hit with. Do you think ultimately this case ends in a settlement, or do you think we get that final decision? And if we do get the final decision, do you have any thoughts on whether or not this ends up in the Second Circuit and ultimate the Supreme?
I do have thoughts on that, and I appreciate the question for whoever asked it. So I do think I don't think we get a settlement. If we were going to get a settlement, we would have already got it. I think that those offers have been on the table and they were rejected. I have no evidence of that, but that's my thesis. So I think the judge will decide, and I'm hopeful that we get a framework. Okay, so whatever she puts forth as precedent from the court case, I think she'll say, if you come to market this way, this is what'll be regulated as a security. This is what you can and can't do, and then we'll have some clarity here in the U.S. on how people can come to market, right? And I don't think the SEC will appeal it because it'll give them ammo to come after anybody in the space that didn't come to market that way. Now they'll have precedent on their side that they can go then take from this case and get wins, right? They could use that as their leverage to come after people like Ethereum that may have had an ICO that they've, said certain things about up to this point. And now we've got people leaving the SEC. People want Gary to go. I don't know when or if he'll go, but I think they're, on the other side of the case, if there is precedent, I don't think that they would appeal it because I think it'll actually work in their favor, that they could use that to actually rack up some wins and do some good. So
yeah, that's actually a very interesting point. I actually haven't heard that one made yet. That's a very good point because the SEC did get sales of Ripple that were deemed securities. We know they're in a lot of other cases right now where they probably need as much help as possible. And I don't know if the SEC really gets much from appealing, because one of the most important things is that the facts are not going to change in this case.
Right.
And I know, Jake, me and you, right, we're obviously big fans of Ripple and big fans of XRP, but we're both pretty intelligent people here, and we could obviously see if something didn't look right or the SEC was obviously pulling stuff up that was we were sitting there thinking, oh, I can't believe Ripple did this. But I don't think I had a single moment the entire case of looking at Slack messages from 2014 where I saw a single thing that even remotely made me concerned. So I just kind of sit there scratching my head, like the SEC combed through every single document they could find and found absolutely nothing, and trying to relitigate this case when you could be going after cases like, look, I don't think Coinbase really deserves it, but
they need to be a broker dealer, man.
Exactly. It's an easy case.
Yeah,
I completely agree with you.
They shouldn't have allowed them to go public without the BD license and the transfer agent license that they need to be able to transact business on, digital securities, because there are definitely things on their platform that should be designated securities, and it would benefit them too, because then they could transact in traditional markets as well, aside from just having the money transmitter licenses that they have. So I think that, they'll get the slap on the wrist, they'll pay their fine, and then that'll also regulate exchanges. I'm interested on, and you pointed this out the other day, I thought you made a really good point on Uniswap and the Wells notice that they were served, and how you thought because the AMM had been built into the layer 1 and it was inherent to the network, there was no centralized party that had authority to remove tokens or manipulate things, and Uniswap can. And so that was your delineation between why they should be regulated a broker-dealer versus the protocol itself, having it inherently built in without the layer 2.
Yes,
super good point.
I'll jump into that real quick just for people interested, because I got this question a lot. I'm sure you did too. Like, oh, Uniswap's an AMM and they just got sued by the SEC, or about to get sued by the SEC. It was only a Wells notice, but why is the XRP ledger AMM different? And This was a hotly debated topic in the XRP community for a while. It was whether or not you put hooks on the network and give the network native smart contracts, or you implement features into layer one and make them native features of the ledger. One of the issues with Ethereum is that the smart contracts built on Ethereum aren't decentralized, and they can be changed. Now they're public, so anyone can read through the smart contracts and say, oh, there's this issue with the smart contract, but they're still ultimately controlled by whatever team put them out. I don't understand the difference between Uniswap putting out a smart contract that makes an automated market maker and Robinhood putting out centralized software that creates an exchange. To me, they're the same exact thing. Now, the XRP Ledger AMM is very different because no one specifically is in control of that automated market maker. It's in control by all 600, 700 validators on the XRP Ledger network. So it can't come back to anyone. It's a very, very interesting distinction. And I think the distinction I'm making right now is far above what the SEC is going to be able to put into a brief. I just don't think they have that technical know-how. I don't think it's what they're going to focus on. But I do think this will become a talking point later down the road, because I do find it an issue that you can just build everything on a centralized smart contract and then try to hide behind that being decentralized when it's really not.
Yeah, I agree. And people at the SEC are very intelligent. I had the pleasure of speaking and meeting Hester Pierce, and meeting Hester Pierce a couple months ago. She gets it. Like, she understands this at scale. She understands how things can be decentralized and the benefits of the technology. Oh, crypto mom. I'm hoping that she gets, if Gary gets removed, she gets the chair. I'm hoping. But anyway, yeah, so there was another deal that they had put out. If you were going to be allocating more than $50 million worth of value to an AMM, you would have to be registered as a broker dealer. Did that pass? Like, where do you know where that's at?
To be honest, I don't know where that is. It seems like whenever we see headlines of one of these things being proposed, it never actually hits the floor or anything. It's more of a cry to get everyone to kind of put their comment, which I think is very important. I think it's very good that these things do go public and everyone can kind of push back, which I definitely think is good. But as far as I know, I don't really think there's been any progress in virtually anything in Congress or actually passing bills. So, look, this is one of the things I've said. It's really good that the people who are passing most of the legislation are really pro crypto. It seems like most of the people who are anti crypto in Congress just want to put a blanket ban on things, but there's not actually any intelligence behind the bills they're putting out. It just doesn't make any sense. So the good news is the people who actually care about the industry are typically the ones going out of their way to write the bills. The people who are anti the industry mostly just yell really loudly, but are more focused on other things because they don't care about crypto. They don't actually care that much to create all these bills to try to slow it down. They're more focused on just telling a regulator to go sue a bunch of people.
Yeah. So I'm probably a little bit more intimately involved on the BD side, because we have the RIA underneath the family office, and we work with people to advise them on their digital assets and hold it in qualified custody. And so we've partnered with a couple BDs to be able to circumvent, or not circumvent, but be compliant, to allocate our clients capital if they want to, if they do have above the 50 million, just in case that is a situation that passes. So
I just got my 65 actually.
Mickle, come to the dark side.
Yeah, it was interesting. You got to learn a lot of cool stuff. So I grinded that out, and it was awesome, it was a lot of work on top of everything else I was doing. But I figured it was a good thing to have.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good thing to have. So we have. Do you know Matt Schneider?
No, I don't.
He's the only other person aside from you that has a 65 that I just became aware of in the digital asset space that I felt like had the level of competency to work with us. So he's our CIO. He's under Block 3 Strategy, is their firm out in North Carolina. And then we've got 65, 7, 66, and the insurance license that we hold as well. So anyway, yeah, we'll have to talk about that offline if that is something you're interested in.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely. I do you have any questions over on? I'm sure you got a bunch of questions over on your side.
Tons of people in the chat here. I've been just enjoying going back and forth with you. What do you think about the hike on the capital gains tax there in Canada?
I mean, did you see the one being proposed here now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Look. I mean, at least here, I'm confident it's not going to happen. The fact that it's actually happening in Canada, I mean, everyone who says they're going to leave the country and go to Canada, go ahead, go over to Canada, man. Like, that I don't know what's happening. It's hard to watch a bit. I do still have a lot of hope for the United States that we're going to be able to get on the right path. So far, the biggest benefit of the United States is just that the courts have really, 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 for the most part, been doing a pretty decent job of keeping things in as check as possible. And then everything's just so divided that nothing actually happens. So there's a lot of talk about all this crazy stuff, but nothing actually happens. So I'm just going to cross my fingers that keeps happening. But oh man, it's disgusting to see.
Yeah, 2/3, so 66.7% for trusts and corporations in Canada. So our trust attorney that does help clients up there always structures trusts in the Caymans or the Bahamas, so they can like snowbird and go down there. But yeah, I can't believe that I don't know if it has passed or if it's going to pass, but I would not have your trust set up in Canada if you're going to be taxed at 66.7% on capital gains. Now, you know, we talk about all the time about taking loans against your assets. Loans or debt against your assets are never taxable, but you have to deal with the interest rate associated with that, right? So, anyway, what do you think? So there's let's get into 66, 65, and 64. XLS 30 or XLS 60, the amendments.
Yeah.
Lend, borrow, and earn. What do you think on those? Do you think we'll be able to be our own bank with that stuff?
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. For a while, right? I've made this point a lot. I think there's been a lot of unfair shots taken at the XRP community about how we don't want to do a lot of things with our assets, but at the end of the day, for a while, there just wasn't a lot you could do on the XRP ledger with your assets. It was a payment protocol for a while. And I think that was the right decision for a long time because other than retail wanting to create a bunch of Ponzi yield generating schemes, there just wasn't that many institutions interesting in much other than payments. So I don't necessarily think that was the wrong call. But now what we see is institutions clearly have a desire to start building out some of these more advanced DeFi capabilities, and lending and borrowing is just a core feature of any financial system. I believe that's going to be really, really, really useful to just people in general, because a lot of retail kind of already has a lot of experience with lending and borrowing. It's not something that's overly complex to them, opposed to something like an automated market maker. I think that's a lot more for a lot of people to wrap their head around in terms of complexity. But I think lending and borrowing is going to be very easy for most people to comprehend. I think people are going to really understand kind of what they're getting themselves into when they do make some of these things. And I think you probably can provide some really great really great advice on how that can be applied to your XRP position and how you can profit off that without actually selling your XRP.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a call earlier today with one of my clients. He's got a larger sum of XRP, and he wanted to utilize the AMM to earn yield to be able to pay the interest on the loans that he took. Right. So basically, it's like self-fulfilling. You're just able to, utilize a portion of your assets there to pay off the interest on the loans that you're taking, and then you can just continually take loans. Kind of an infinite banking concept. Which I really like, how that looks. If you just have to work through the numbers, right? So what I talk about is financial freedom, and I have an actual definition. I know a lot of people kind of like it's an arbitrary term, but my definition of financial freedom is you make twice your expenses every single month from passive income. So, if it takes you $10,000 a month to live and you enjoy your life, if you made $20,000 a month passively, you're financially free. You're stacking a month every single month, right? And so, what does that look like? Could you use the AMM? Could you use the lending protocol? Could you borrow against your XRP? I talk about buying assets that cash flow to fund your lifestyle instead of just buying the thing that you want. Because everybody wants the nice house, the nice car, the watch, whatever it is that you want, right? People have been holding this stuff long enough. You want a prize at the end of it. I don't know what it is. But if you bought an asset and used the cash flow off that to pay the payments on whatever it was, or saved up from the cash flow to purchase whatever you're wanting, then you don't have to worry about that. And you have that asset that produces cash in perpetuity.
I watched a video you did the other day, and it was rather than buy the car, why don't you buy a car wash and use that car wash to pay off the car? And I was like, that's really the mentality that I think a lot more people out there need. And one of the reasons I love the borrowing and lending part of XRP is just because I think a lot of people kind of have these plans, these cash out plans on their XRP, which is what I try to tell people, like, look, yes, if you want to cash out portions of your XRP, like, no one's going to stop you, and I'm sure that's going to be a good decision at a certain level. But over the long run, like, you're cutting yourself off from the price appreciation of XRP later down the road. And if you can instead use your XRP as leverage within your own portfolio and use that to expand your horizon and generate even more cash while still retaining that XRP, then look, you might be able to give yourself all the cash you want in the short term, but then over the long term, still have the price appreciation of that great asset. So it's really important that I think people pay attention to some of these new features and understand that they're going to present new opportunities for them later down the road that they'll likely be able to take advantage of. And just to start thinking about these things and just start trying to wrap your head around them, I think is really important now, because even if they're not here today, they might affect your plans in the short term.
Well, I think, probably within the next 12 months, right? So we went to consensus last year about this time, and I got to talk to David Schwartz. And just before that, they had proposed the market maker, right? And he had been working on it for forever. And I asked him, I said, when do you think, it might be voted on or come in? And he said October of 23. Obviously, that drug out way longer. In October of 23. That's when it was proposed for vote. So, with these other amendments, you've got 64, 65, and 66. They've just now kind of come to the forefront in conversation. My expectation is maybe it's 12 months from now when we actually get those implemented on the network and you're able to use that stuff. We have partners now, Maple Finance and some others, that will give you loans against your XRP at Prime Plus One. And so pretty reasonable rates, 8 or 9%. Now, as long as you're taking that and doing something with it to produce a higher return, then you have a strip there that you can, take and still service the debt. But I'm with you, if I can take leverage against it and then maintain exposure to the asset without having to incur the tax implications and have it for the long-term appreciation, I think that's the way to go about it. And until there's less volatility, I wouldn't recommend taking more than, it's not financial advice, but if you're as long as you're doing less than 20 or 30% LTV, you're probably safe there. Now we have 90% drawdowns, so I could be completely wrong, but
yeah. I think the point is like, obviously this asset class is going to change a lot over the next couple of years, and as that asset class changes, obviously plans are going to be more specific. They're going to be able to be really honed in when we get a better look at it, exactly what we're dealing with. I think the point is like, you've been able to gather a lot of these assets at a very, very, very early time period and low price. To just dump those assets isn't typically the best idea. If you look at the most wealthy people in the entire world, you don't see too many day traders. You don't see too many people who have made their money flipping their portfolio and getting in and out of assets. And in fact, I think if you ask most of the most wealthy people in the world, Jake, and I'm sure the people you talk to is absolutely incredible. So guys, Jake's not guessing when he is telling you what these people did to acquire their wealth. He knows. They're people who have held their assets for very long periods of time and take loans against those assets.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if you've ever watched Mike Maloney. You watch Mike at all? He's
No,
kind
I
of
don't, I'm not
he's a
sure who
gold
he
bug.
is. Oh,
Um,
okay.
he has a 9 video series on the secrets of money. If you haven't ever watched it, highly encourage people to go watch it. Talks about the Federal Reserve and everything else. And the last one has to deal with cryptocurrency. He was in on the ICO for Hedera. Sharp guy. Anyway, he has a video about wealth cycles, and he shows if you had traded real estate and gold over the last 100 years, and you had originally started with a $3,000 home, which would have been like a mansion back in 1920, and you swapped it at the top and bottom of each cycle when there was disparity between them, you would have like $50 billion today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I'm with you. You know, like most people just maintain exposure to something that they know is going to go up over a period of time. We have the capability to put stuff inside of certain things that allow you to swap with no tax implications. So one of those is PPLI, or private placement life insurance. Got to have a pretty hefty bag of something to get that started. It's a $5 million minimum, but you can fund the policy with the asset. And once it's inside there, you can trade kind of like an IRA with no tax implications. And the other thing you can do is you can start a foundation and have an endowment. So that's how Yale and Harvard and all these large universities, they don't have to pay any taxes because they trade inside their endowment, and they have a management company that manages those investments that makes money off of the investments, right? So those are just some of the strategies that we use to make sure that you're not having to pay any taxes and your assets grow in perpetuity.
Whenever I hear you talk about those strategies, I just sit there and I'm just like, man, I need to sit down and have a conversation with Jake and get some of this stuff in place. It's really interesting to listen to you talk about that, because you really have found all these great useful tools to really be able to take advantage of the position that you're in. And you know, I talk to a lot of people on a daily basis, right? And everyone's really focused on what asset to choose, where to put the money here, and not that this isn't very important things, but it's so cool to see like how you've been able to find all these different ways that once you have those assets and once you have all that, you can even create more wealth and build even more wealth inside of what you're doing there. Because I mean, these are just places that honestly not a lot of people have spent a long time focusing on. And I think you're providing some really unique education in all these places.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I'm just super blessed. I've been able to surround myself with people that have way more knowledge than me in certain areas, like yourself on the tech side. Like I don't understand a lot of what you do, and you know, you're able to look at things through a different lens than I am because you have different experience. But yeah, it's a culmination. I know enough to be dangerous. That's what I say.
I
And I
love
refer
that.
people to the professionals that I work with, right, that have 20 or 30 years worth of experience doing whatever they do. And I kind of provide the other value for digital assets, right? You and me both probably have a pretty niche understanding of things that I would say there's probably less than 100 people on the planet that I can, and there's other people that like understand it, you know, and they're invested. But I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to toot our horns here, right? Like we're just normal guys, but we've spent a lot of time trying to figure this stuff out.
It's funny because there's so many different sides of kind of how people find crypto, and I actually think the smallest portion of crypto is honestly the typical investor who came from TradFi, who understands crypto on a deep level and wants to understand how to take that and put it in a portfolio to construct wealth. Most of the people I still see in crypto are really only focused on the tech side of things and only focused on building different things. And I just see so much opportunity for expansion in bringing in people who have been heavily focused on investing in traditional portfolios and building out wealth. coming over to this new asset class. And typically, as you probably experienced, once you're here, you're not leaving. You're here to stay.
Yeah, once you take the red pill, there's no going back. So it's interesting you mentioned that. So we've built a fund that has 6 buckets on a risk curve that we're taking to other RIAs and family offices to allow allocation to digital assets, and we've hedged those, right? So we have a lending and borrowing partner where we are able to earn interest on some of the assets in the bucket, and then we take loans against the depreciated cash flows, and then allocate those to options to buy shorts in order to hedge.
Wow, that's really cool.
Because there's no you can't sell puts, or like a lot of the stuff for derivatives in the U.S. just doesn't exist. Binance, you can do that, but they're not here, right? So pretty limited in the scope of the sexy, cool ways that you can hedge your portfolio. But yeah, so we've put together a lot of ways to mitigate risk and make money on the portfolio, irrespective of the direction of the market.
Yeah, no, it is funny because you're right. Like a lot of those tools you don't even really think about, but they're really just not there yet. And I think it's just another testament how early we are to this industry. I mean, it's going to be funny, to even think we had this conversation in 5 to 10 years when obviously most of these things are fully built out, and we're sitting here and it's the most simple financial products that are layered so deep into our financial system haven't even made their way into the cryptocurrency sector yet.
Yeah. So we're one of there's probably 7 or 8 firms at this point that have the custody service for digital assets here in the U.S. between Anchorage. We're still the only one with standard custody. But yeah, most RIAs and wealth managers don't even know that they need a custody provider for digital assets or that they exist. That's funny. Stay far away from it. There's one firm that allows people to tie visibility back to the wealth manager, and they can suggest trades or DeFi staking or things to do with the assets, and then the person still has to approve those on their cold wallet or whatever they're using to trade with, or their hot wallet, wherever it's held. So the industry is progressing, but I think the big boys are about to move in a pretty meaningful way here. Now we have the ETFs. Hong Kong goes live on the 30th for Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Did you see that?
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And people were asking me a lot, my opinions on that. And, I think there's a lot of different guesses you can take in terms of inflows. I thought one interesting thing was it's actually a smaller population than New York, but actually a more wealthy population, which I think is just showing the amount of inflows we'd probably see. But irrespective of all that, I think we're so far past the narrative that this stuff is going to get banned now. You can't even have the conversation anymore. To me, that's the most important thing. I mean, it just seems like the switches are being turned on all over the world. We're now seeing wide scale acceptance. And for me, I was really happy to see the United States approving these things and starting to see that adoption. If you told me we would have seen this a year after FTX and Terra Luna going under, I would have said you're insane. I would have said that set our industry back 4 to 5 years. To see the United States flip on that so quickly, but now to see places like Hong Kong also turning that on, I mean, things are I know a lot of people sit there and say, "Oh, things are taking forever. Things are taking forever." Things are moving so much faster than I would have ever imagined.
They're accelerating. People want exposure, right? People are asking questions. We sat in on a call the other day. There's a hospital that reached out. So I sit on the Arkansas Blockchain Council, and they reached out, and it's an enterprise corporation, does billions of dollars a year in revenue. And they're like, hey, this blockchain stuff, we need y'all to come talk to us and explain to us how this is going to affect our business. Because we see it, but we don't know anybody that understands this. So can you come educate us? So we get to go do that. And then there's been,
that's really cool. That's really cool. That sounds fun to me.
Yeah,
I just talked someone's ear off.
Right. Well, and they have just a very basic understanding, almost nothing. They don't even know what blockchain is, right? it's a mutable ledger. There's 100 plus computers that all verify the same transactions. Nobody can change them. It's an accounting mechanism, right?
Yeah.
They don't even know that. They're like Bitcoin, and I'm like, yeah.
I think a lot of people get confused of how small the educated group of cryptocurrency investors are, because things like social media have brought us so close together that we like put ourselves in this tiny bubble of people who understand this. But I mean, like, it is so small. And if it wasn't for the internet, I don't know if many of us would have one or two people in our lives who understand this stuff.
Dude.
So like the amount of adoption that still is ahead of us, I think people severely underestimate it.
Yeah, Twitter has like driven a lot of this, right? I think crypto Twitter in particular allows a lot of people to connect that otherwise wouldn't have. Almost my whole business team was built through Twitter.
Wow.
Like I would have never met any of these people without X. So
I mean, I wasn't even on, like, when I first started finding out about this stuff, it was more just from like me looking into it. I didn't even know about crypto Twitter. So when I like found this like ecosystem of people, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, you kind of walk into this, and it almost like seems surreal because of like the ranges of people who are in it. It's a crazy range of people, but man, I mean, it's absolutely life changing. I think the access to information we have nowadays, and the amount, like, I follow probably 15, just throwing out a random number, 15 X accounts right now, completely for free, who probably provide millions of dollars of value to me every single year, and it's free, and I can pick their brains on a daily basis. And even me talking to you right here, I mean this right here is a conversation that would have never been possible before things like X and Twitter. And to be able to have access to that, I think a lot of people really need to understand how special that is.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. The democratization of access and information, and that's kind of Elon's shtick, right? Like, he wants freedom of speech and real-time news and no manipulation of what's going on. I think he's driving that. There's still some stuff that needs to be worked out there, but I think he's done really well with the platform. So
yeah, I think so too.
What do you think his exit is? Or do you think there is an exit? So he took, Twitter was public. He took it private, right, when he acquired it.
Oh yeah.
Do you think he takes it public again to get his money back? Or do you think it's X, right? Like, it's his baby. It's his app that he wanted to build from the jump. It's the everything app. So
yeah, I think he takes it public again. And I was so mad because I was a Twitter shareholder beforehand. I got bought out, and everyone's like, you know how it is. It's like it was when I was younger. I had shares like really low at like $10. And like everyone in my family, or the older folks I talked to, was like, oh, like, you get this buyout, like, that's absolutely amazing. And I was like, no, I can't get the shares now that they're private. So now I think he's going to take this company republic at a valuation significantly higher than it was before, and I just lost all my shares for whatever price the bullshit mainstream media was complaining was completely overvalued. Like, Elon's gonna triple this company in the private market, and even if technically it's not supposed to be, it's gonna have the Elon valuation when it comes back, which I think is gonna be sky high. So that was a bit of a heartbreaker for me, but I think it comes back.
Yeah, it's the only way he gets his money back out of it, right? And he's not, like, Elon's brilliant. He's not in it to make the money, but he isn't not here to make the money either, right? So he's got to do what's best for him and his long-term vision for everything.
Yeah, I think Elon is it's very unique that you get an engineer with kind of the business mind of Elon, and someone who's really been able to become so smart in both areas. But yeah, I mean, Elon's in this to make money. I think everything he does at some level is driven to make money, because I don't think he thinks it's a good idea if it doesn't make money.
He's in it for leverage. So I'll tell you, a couple years ago, my buddy at his bachelor party, we're there, and his buddy runs a crane company here in Texas that worked on the Gigafactory down in Austin. Okay. And so the first day on the site, he brings like one crane, and then he lines a couple more up. And Elon figures out every time they bring a new crane onto the construction site, because they're filming it, his stock price goes up. And so he calls him up and he's like, hey, I need 3 more cranes here tomorrow. And they were like, but you're not going to use them. Like, why do you need the cranes on site if they're just going to sit there? He's like, I don't care. My stock price goes up like however many, I make $6 million for every crane that you bring on site. So I need you to bring more cranes tomorrow. And they were like, cool, whatever, So that's
a
how
great
Elon
story.
thinks, though, like he makes these correlations and he's like, okay, this is what people are paying attention to that's driving our stock price. I'm going to do more of that, irrespective of the cost associated with it, because he's going to make so much more on the stock appreciation than it cost for the crane to be there. And that's when I was like, okay, he does all this for leverage. Like,
Yeah.
It's not about the money. It's his capability to draw down loans against that, to be able to apply that capital other places, and for clout and reputation and all the other things. Right. So,
yeah, I think you make some great points there. I mean, just his ability to also really shut out the noise and just execute on what he's put out to execute. I mean, that's something that I don't think we really see a lot of in the world anymore. I think a lot of people get very wrapped up into what other people think of their ideas, and just his ability to set his mind to something and just get it done is always something I've really admired.
He's able to learn stuff at a rapid rate. And all he's got to do is decide he wants to learn it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. We geek out on a lot of the stuff that, and most people don't, right? Like, there's a lot of things that I enjoy, probably you enjoy, that other people are like, that's boring. Why do you care about all that? But he's able to decide that what's not boring, and then be able to learn, like physics, to be able to put rockets into space and then be able to land them without losing the parts, and then scale that business. And people don't realize either. So like some of the economic value for that. So we have shipping containers, right? We have these boats that take however long to come across the ocean between ports. When these rockets are at scale, they'll be able to take, I don't remember what the metric was, but it was something crazy, like 20 times the amount of freight that a boat can take across the ocean, from the US to Japan in like 30 minutes.
Oh,
like just completely redoes the entire supply chain.
It completely flips it upside down.
Yeah. So
hey, I got a question for you. That's a little bit of a pivot. Obviously, you've got that R3 mug in the background. I would love to hear any thoughts about just kind of R3, Ripple, XRP. Do you see R3 as competition for Ripple going into the future? Do you have any ideas of which approach you think is winning, partnership, any ideas around that?
I speak with both teams. Again, super privileged just to even be able to have conversations with these companies. They are both adamant that they don't deal with the other one, that there was a lawsuit and there was a settlement, and they have nothing to do with the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, we have a project with R3. We're tokenizing something that'll allow liquidity to private markets in the investments that we help clients with. And so anyway, we approached them with it. We had some conversations initially. We do have NDAs around our stuff that I can't really discuss, like what we're building.
Yeah.
In those conversations, they do have the capability to settle through a couple different assets. And so we asked them, if we're going to do secondary markets, like what chain does it make sense to do those on? What would be good? And they said, well, there's only one asset in the US that has clarity as not a security. And that's probably a good one to choose. So for people that are saying, you know, that's not going to happen or this, that, and the other. Yeah, that's what I'll say on the subject.
I love the way I love the way you say that, and to be completely honest with you, I was watching another live stream you're doing just in the background, and I heard you make I came to the end of it and I heard you commenting on that, and I was like, man, I would love to hear what you have to say about that. But I also think it's just so cool that you get to interact with some of these parties kind of in your daily life. I mean, like when I saw you like posting pictures of some of the R3 people, and I see some of the other stuff you're doing, I mean, it blows my mind. It's absolutely incredible, Jake, and to see you getting to do that stuff, I mean, it's like it's so funny. I like I almost feel like a little proud. I'm like, damn, that is so sick. Good for him.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, like well, I have a reason to reach out to people and have conversations. We're building things in the space, you know. And a lot of what I've built has been selfish, right? So like the custody partnership, I reached out to them, said, hey, like, I want to custody my stuff on your platform. We have the family office. We work with other clients. Like, how do we do that? And they were like, well, you're the first person that's ever even reached out to us about this for, you know, a multi-person account. And so we helped them pioneer that. And then, you know, just developed other relationships, and everybody's been super nice to make introductions. But I take the initiative and reach out to people and have a reason to actually engage them in a conversation around business, right? And so I'm just super blessed.
What do you think? What do you think your biggest? What do you think your like the most important thing you've kind of learned so far, like on this journey, or what do you think like has been like a really big takeaway that you kind of weren't expecting going in?
Give me more context, like
Well,
just around digital assets, or like as an entrepreneur.
I'll just give you an example. Like one of the things that I guess more an entrepreneur, like one of the things like I never really expected was just like how important it was for me to have like an open mind to things that I didn't think like I agreed with based off like the first time I heard it. First time I learned about digital assets, I thought they were a scam. Now I talk about digital assets 24/7, and there's been a lot of things like that. And every single time someone brings something new to the table for me, I always have to sit back and remember, hey, look, even if my initial thought here wasn't that I like this idea, let me at least give it the time of day and sit back and really try to appreciate what's being told to me right here, because I might walk away with a completely different understanding than I originally thought.
Yeah, being open-minded. So I've got some principles that our family office lives by and my family lives by. Probably the most valuable lesson, it's hard to put like a specific one. I'll tell you an action that has changed my life more than anything else.
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
So 3 years ago, I made my standard is I have to speak to somebody new every single day and have an intimate conversation with them. And I've been able to execute on that. Most of the time it's more than one person a day. I've probably talked to, I don't know, over 2,000 people in the last 3 years. And sometimes, you know, it's just me providing value on my side. Sometimes there's synergy. Sometimes they become a client. Sometimes they're a business partner. Sometimes, you know, we have an affiliate agreement and swap business. Sometimes nothing happens at all. Sometimes I don't even like the other person, and I find out that I don't like them, right? Or they don't like me. It's fine. Anyway, doing that and being intentional about it, I've been able to meet more people and grow my network in ways that, like, that's what's driven the majority of my success. And I always ask the other person how I can help them. If they can help me, great, cool. Whatever I can do to help the other person. I don't expect anything in return either. and the reason for that is, I don't know if you believe in God or the universe or larger things at work, but I believe whatever you put out comes back to you. And so if I'm able to help them in some way and provide benefit, even if it's not directly from them, sometimes people make introductions, right? And that's really nice. But that'd probably be what I'd say. Like if you wanted to change your life in a meaningful way, grow your network, be intentional about meeting somebody new every single day, and then asking them what you can do to help them.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely awesome. And honestly, I genuinely was asking just because obviously, what you've been able to build over these last couple of years is nothing short of incredible. So, obviously, I think I'm a little newer to this entire journey. It's my dream to be able to kind of move over and do a lot of the stuff I'm doing right now on a part-time as a full-time basis, and just to see you kind of take the opportunity and execute. I always love to be able to kind of hear some of those things, and it's really cool to kind of hear some of that advice from someone who's kind of just executing on such a high level.
I appreciate that. The other thing I would say is, a couple things. So I always try to figure out if there is demand for whatever I'm providing to the marketplace. And I do that by giving it away for free to begin with. If people are willing to take it for free, most of the time they're willing to pay for it.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. And if they're not, then you probably don't have anything about it.
Yeah, if they're not willing to take for free, then probably don't have anything that's in demand, right?
Yeah, that's good.
So like the first 50 consults that we did for the family office to be proactive in digital assets, I did completely for free. When we started the mastermind, like I was like, hey, are you guys interested? It's $25. And then everybody handed me money and we're like, oh, okay, like we got to build something now, right? Like I opened my mouth. But just, you actually have proof that there's demand in the marketplace for something. And then the other thing, and I saw this mainly there's been multiple instances, but the main one was when I was a trainer, other trainers would tell people because I said so, and like they wouldn't explain things. I've always been of the mindset that I'm here to help people and help them grow, and eventually they don't need me. Like that's my goal with everybody that I work with for everything, is that I'm able to pass you enough information that you're able to take care of yourself. And then at some point you're like, hey, Jake, really appreciate all your help, man. We're good. And I'm happy with that. So all the products that we've built at the family office allow you to scale over time to where eventually you become a single family office and have your own group inside of it. You don't necessarily need us. We're happy to sit on the board if you need us to. But that's kind of how I've built my business. Is we help people get off the ground. We help them put it together. We help them scale. And then at some point they are able to be self-sufficient and they can do their own thing. So, and some people never want that. Some people always want somebody else to help them, but that's the way I like to put things together.
No, yeah, that's really cool. I guess kind of another off-topic question. You're going to be at Vegas, right?
Maybe.
Oh no, maybe.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Dang, I just kind of assumed you would be.
Yeah, I've not talked to Brad or DAI in a little while. I need to reach out to them.
Okay, I thought you'd be there, but anyway, I was going, so I was gonna be like, oh, I can't wait to link with you there. But
yeah, there'll be a lot of people that are there. I'm excited for the event. I had a great time last year. I think that it'll be, a really killer event. They're doing MGM this year, and their costs are substantially higher than they were at Treasure Island. Speaker slots cost like $25,000, and so I was like, well. And we have other events in May. I'll be traveling a lot in May. So
no, I feel you. I don't do a lot of traveling, and also I'm not going there to speak. I'm going there to walk around and meet some people. But we'll definitely have to link up at some point and get something going on.
Man. We have events for the mastermind. You're always welcome at those if you ever want to come to one. Put on private dinners before those. You're welcome at that.
I just got to get out of this full-time job, man. That's my issue.
Well, like I said, follow up with me on the 65, and maybe we can work something out, man.
Do you got any other questions on your side that you're seeing?
I've had a
I do.
bunch of people.
I want to give you one real quick because this one's come up a couple times for me. What is Jake's bench press?
The most I ever did. So I've never maxed out on anything. When I was 260 after the last time I competed at nationals, I did 325 incline for 15.
Whoa, that's insane, man.
I cannot do that now. Don't ask me to do that now. I can. The other day I did 315 for like 5 or 6.
Wow, that's.
So,
I think most. There you go, guys. Everyone's kind of been asking that question. I think half serious, half joking. Yeah, exactly. I thought it was a pretty funny one.
I really don't think like that's so. My bench has never been good. If you guys don't know, Max, my business partner, he was a power lifter, Max Avery, and he was going to compete at the Arnold in Australia when he ended up getting a hernia. I think he had almost a 2,000-pound total. When he was doing that. So my squat is really like what I'm proud of. So when I was 27, I did 405 for 27 reps.
I heard 405 and I was like expecting like maybe 15 again for 27. Yeah. Jake, if you saw my squat, you'd be absolutely appalled. And I lift a decent amount, but for some reason, like the power category has never come to me. I lift mostly for the look side of things.
That's how
if you saw me, you would think I lifted a lot more than I do.
That's what you want. You just want the look, man. It doesn't matter what you really lift. I don't train for strength anymore, or even to get any. I'm trying to downsize, honestly. So I get in there and I just do sets of 20 on everything and move around. It's really
at my powerlifting kind of stage, I was sitting at 200, but now I'm down at like 175, and I do feel a lot better. A lot better. I think everyone kind of has that phase when you get into bodybuilding. You kind of hit it, and I think the people who do the best realize, all right, that's in the past now. Time to move on to the next thing. I think the people who try to hang on to that end up getting themselves into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, I tore my hamstring and my quad this year for the first time. I'm 32, and I'd never had any injuries before that. And of all things, like I went to my boys' football game and was running sprints with his team and pulled my hamstring. I'm like, oh, I'm an old man.
Oh man, that's funny. Damn. Well, that stinks, but obviously the story's a little funny.
I'm all right.
I
want to say thanks to everybody for the super chats here. Most people are just super excited that we're on the chat together here, man.
Yeah, that's mostly what I'm getting over here too. It seems like everyone's just like really enjoying the conversation, which I like. Jake, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with you that didn't end up with me and you just going back and forth with each other about a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, I honestly, I'm just looking here. I don't really have anything. I'll give my chat an opportunity right now. Chat, if you have anything you're pressing to jump into, definitely drop that. But yeah, most of the people are just kind of having a conversation around what we're saying.
You did a video the other day on the atomic swaps for XLS 56D. What do you think that brings to the network, and like implications for that?
So that one I had to chalk up an Elon. Atomic swaps are going to be something on the XRP ledger. The actual definition in crypto for atomic swaps is technically cross-chain. So I was thinking there is some kind of cross-chain functionality there, but I guess it's only internal XRP ledger cross-chain, which I mean, obviously the techies, that would have came naturally to them. But I do see a very interesting opportunity with actually that still taking place, because there's a lot of cross-chain protocols, a protocol called Axeler, who's going to be issuing assets on the XRP ledger. And once you have those issued assets on the XRP ledger, then you can actually use that atomic batch transaction to essentially kind of do a synthetic atomic swap. And you just have, if you just have an issuer who's issuing assets at a fast enough pace and a liquid enough pace, you can still kind of swap between all these different assets through those batch transactions. So it would essentially be like if you had, let's just say X Bitcoin, which is, so let's say Axler's X Bitcoin issued on the XRP ledger, and X ETH, Axler's ETH issued on the XRP ledger. Rather than having to go to one to the other, then it could essentially run that transaction all in one. So you could be swapping through these assets on the back end instantaneously. And if you did integrate Axler into a network, now this part would be a little more centralized, they could then just reissue the original assets on the back end. So from a customer standpoint, it could seem like you just did a seamless swap all in one chain and it happened all instantaneously behind the scenes. But on a network perspective, there still is a hop or two in there. So definitely some very interesting functionality. I think in the long run, we're going to see the front ends do a lot of the work that we're being forced to do right now. And a lot of the intricacies are going to be handled by teams that the average user is not going to have to actually know what happens. And it's going to be these protocols being put in place right now that are going to be key parts of creating these swaps, even if it's not technically the atomic swap all happening in one thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. So like, I don't understand that at a deep enough level, or the DEX, to be honest with you. Like I understand that, you know, it's interoperability and you can swap between things, and the native asset kind of allows you to do that. The way that I saw the atomic swap was, so PolySign has a product called Atomic Net. And what they do is you're able to escrow issued assets on either side of the transaction with a smart contract in the middle, and you're able to transact risklessly between two parties. So whatever's stipulated in the smart contract, once those conditions have been met, those two assets swap with no counterparty risk at the same time. So it's not like I send you this and then you send me that. You just have an atomic swap where both issued assets are swapped to the other person from the escrows. That's
really interesting. And they have that capability, obviously, because they have their own proprietary blockchain, right?
It's built on top of the XRPL, but yeah.
Oh, very interesting. I didn't know that. See, this is why I love talking to Jake, everyone, because Jake meets with people and just Jake, you're one of the few people who I can sit down and have a conversation with. And look, not even the tech stuff, but you bring so much new knowledge to me on a daily basis on stuff like this. It's really cool to listen to some of these conversations you get to have, and just being able to pick your brain is always so much fun. I will share something with you in terms of that amendment that I don't think a lot of people know about. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Have you interacted with any of the platforms yet for the pools?
I haven't.
Okay.
You know, I'm
so
staying,
this is. I'll just
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. So this one right here is called XP Market. It's a new one, and I just wanted to share it because what they're doing is very, very cool. They just launched a crowdfunding process so that projects could essentially launch, and they can help raise XRP from the community to essentially help fund a lot of these projects in the early days. I think a lot of the big issues are projects relying on Ripple grants, blah, 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 blah. But one of the issues that for a while that these projects were having, and you can just see they have the automated market maker ranking. One of the big issues that a lot of these projects were having on the XRP ledger was they didn't actually have a way to fund themselves. So what we're seeing right now is that these projects, right, that are building these really cool interfaces that have all the automated market maker pools, have the trend for the automated market makers, have these cool interfaces, they can actually now abstract a very small fee based on every single transaction done on their platform. And it's not going to be a fee the typical user sees, but it's going to be a fee that helps them actually create products like this that are going to be useful to people wanting to use the network. And this is kind of a hidden feature in that atomic transaction thing being added, because one of the biggest reasons for one of the biggest things the XRP ledger was lacking for a while was a way for projects like this to actually build sustainable business models. And now that they can actually extract some kind of fee on top of people going through and using this platform all in a swap feature, it is really, really cool. So honestly, this is one of the things that I've been very excited about, just because I think for the first time, we're going to see a lot of projects starting to spring up and build cool applications like this because they can finally properly monetize their platforms.
Yeah, I think that's huge, man. Because people get mad, there's going to be fees, and you're building frictions into the system, but you have to create a way for people to be profitable. And like I said before, if it's at scale and there's millions or billions of transactions that are occurring within an ecosystem and you're taking a very nominal fee across those, you can be very profitable while providing a service at a very low cost to everybody else. So
yeah,
I think that's great. This is interesting, the crowdfunding piece here. So I don't know if that's, so I'm on the other side of the fence here, right? So we run Reg D funds. We have a platform called Syndicately, where we have end-to-end fund administration for Reg D funds. And so if they're running a crowdfunding deal, I don't know if it's compliant with Reg CF. Do you have to sign disclosures and like a PPM and like a subscription agreement in order to be able to pool your capital in here and contribute your XRP? Or is it just like, hey, here's my wallet, here's some XRP?
I think it's literally, here's my wallet, here's my XRP, and that's I was thinking the same exact thing. So I'm kind of excited to have a conversation with him and just ask about that on the back end. I think the logic here is that they don't actually touch it. I think it's all done on the back end. But
So what's the risk? Are they making donations? What are the contingencies? Like, I just have a lot of questions.
Well, this is specific crowdfunding for a token, so it's essentially a pre-sale, but
got it.
Yeah, it's essentially a pre-sale of a token, which
okay, so it could be
obviously
a SAF.
that it. Go ahead.
So you could do a SAF. So you can do a simple agreement for future tokens. And you could take cryptocurrency as the contribution for that and then launch, but you still need to be verifying people's accredited status. I don't know. I just have a lot of questions.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I'm curious to get more information on this, but to be completely honest with you, regardless, this is something that almost every other ecosystem does, and I don't know. I don't know the technicalities of what they've got going on the back end there, but this kind of stuff is desperately needed for projects building on the XRP ledger because the liquidity is there in every other ecosystem. The XRP ledger hasn't had it. So in my opinion, obviously there's stuff they have to figure out on the back end, but these are the kinds of things that we've really needed for a bit now.
Yeah. So like the whole premise of the end-to-end fund administration platform that we built is we want to democratize capability to raise capital for anything, right? So whether you're raising money to invest in a company or make an acquisition of another company or syndicating a real estate property, or if you just want to like buy a cool collectible and hold it with a qualified custodian with your friends, right? You're going to fund an SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle. And then the company itself, you own equity in that for your contribution. And it owns the underlying asset, whatever it is. So crowdfunding is a bit different, and there's other compliance that needs to be built into that. So I don't know. Need to reach out to them and see we can help them. I want to help them. Make sure that they're not going to get sued by the SEC or
for sure.
End up with a knock on their door.
For sure. Interesting enough, I am curious what they do got going on there because I know Ripple was one of their main investors. So it is a very interesting platform that just popped up, and that 200 XRP was raised in less than 8 hours. 200,000 XRP was raised in less than 8 hours. So definitely pumping up some numbers. Yeah, exactly. I'm taking a look at
appreciation. Nobody. We're doing really good.
Taking a look at the chat right here. Yeah, Jake. Not to cut things off, but it's pretty late here on the East Coast.
You on the East, yeah. I was gonna say almost midnight there.
Yeah, so I might be ready to jump off soon, unless you have any other topics you want to jump into.
No, we really covered a lot of different stuff, man. I appreciate you taking the time and reaching out. I think this has been really good for people. I'm excited to have you on and me be on yours, and hopefully it's provided people some value. love to do it again. And like I said, you're always welcome. We'll do events. We'll invite you. And I definitely need to catch up with you on the 65 piece. I think we might have some other synergy there. So,
oh, for sure. And yeah, Jake, I would. This is something, like I was saying, that people are asking me to do for a long time, and I would love to be able to do this. I don't know, maybe like once a month or whatever, we get together and run a Q&A, because people are absolutely loving this in my chat. Everyone's been dying to hear from you. Obviously, everyone has very high praise in this community for a lot of the things you've been doing on the back end and Bill. It's extremely impressive. And I think it's cool to kind of be able to introduce you to a lot of my audience members who haven't met you. Really, really cool kind of getting to talk about a wide range of things here, starting off at macro, jumping into digital assets, and then kind of towards the end, just having a conversation. But this has been a ton of fun.
Absolutely, brother. We'll have to do it again. Like you said, if we can make it a monthly deal, I'd love to do it. But yeah, if anybody does have any final questions, I mean, I don't have anything on my side. So if you want to go ahead and wrap it up, we can do it, man.
Cool. Yeah, no, honestly, everyone in my chat is just saying absolutely love this. This is great. Yeah, no, it seems like we covered a lot of stuff, and people were just really enjoying the conversation. So yeah, Jake, we'll definitely have to do this again. It was great talking to you, and I'll definitely be reaching out regarding some other stuff.
Sounds good, brother. You have a wonderful night. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, you too. Talk to you later, man.
We'll see you.